how do you incorporate the vendors? Do you give them an opportunity to say a few words, 15 minutes? Do they also offer any type of raffles or things of that nature? This was something in one of our meetings we were kicking that around, those thoughts.
So we're kind of weird like that. It depends on what it is. Our younger board members have been wanting to charge for it. We currently, depending on who it is and if the speaker charges, that depends on if we charge or don't charge. Because again, that's one of the things we're struggling with is we are trying to get business partners or vendors or sponsors or whatever you want to talk about to join our meetings, because again, we're so far apart. A lot of people will go to Denver or Salt Lake, so we're still working on that. So we haven't had to really incorporate the vendor sponsor option. I went to Nebraska's virtual seminar yesterday, which was kind of fun because I don't normally get to go to it. And they did a really good job of incorporating their sponsors, where they had them similar to what they did before, is they gave like a 5-minute they allowed him to do like a 5-minute spiel of this presentation is sponsored by them. Here's what they do. And then they allowed him to do different stuff. So I would suggest hooking up with,
nice.
Yeah, it was really good. They had a really good way of incorporating the sponsors and that type of thing. So if you don't have any connection with anybody from Nebraska, I can hook you up with them, but they're pretty good about, as of yesterday, and they're remote ones who do the sponsors and the vendors through that. So that we don't have an experience with because we're still trying to get people to do it for us.
Okay. I do like also the statement that Charlie made at the very beginning, where he was saying that who is our audience? Who is our audience now? And that's really key for us to answer. It's not just, each other, but how now that we are, off-site. I know for the company I worked at, it's going to be a few more months before most of the employees will be back on site. They just only have a few that's on site currently, and it just started this week. But overall, what will be the target? What will be the records? Where I guess it's like trying to identify what the trajectory is for records and information management and what that program would look like. Any thoughts, anyone? Maybe
I would start with chapter members. What's important to them first, and then anybody else who wants to attend. That's, their nickel or not.
Yeah, I'd support that too. In the past, we've done an annual every summer as part of our planning. We've put out a survey to our members to find out what topics they're interested in. And since COVID, obviously we haven't had our planning session, and we'll be doing that soon. But I don't think we have anything to worry about in terms of competition with other groups, because we have both a local body of people who are interested in maybe perhaps specific topics, as well as we have an educational value that we can communicate to people who may not be members of our chapter or our organization, but who still need to know. So our chapter president is here, so she can speak about it. But our virtual AGM had a really excellent part at the end where we asked all the members just to speak about how they were coping with COVID issues, working remotely, capturing information from remote workers, and so on. And it was fantastic. We got people not having to speak for long, but we got a lot of interest. So I think, to support what George is saying, you do begin with the people who are in your chapter because you're giving them value for belonging, but you can certainly provide information to a wider audience. And I don't think you have to fear the competition at all.
So when do you schedule them? During the day, in the evening?
Our AGM was scheduled, I think, at 5, was it not?
Yeah, we did it after work. We kept to the same time that we normally schedule our in-person AGM, and actually the same day, in fact, and did it in the evening. And then we've had, we really had success with virtual events at a lot of times during the day, though. We've done ones in the afternoon. We've done ones not so much in the morning, although ARMA Canada's had a few of those because of the time difference across the country. But yeah, we find afternoon, evening on the weekdays tends to work.
This is Carolyn again. I think we also had more attendance because employers aren't having to pay for the going and the coming to the different events. They can pop on, they can pop off, and then you don't have to try to schedule time to commute back and forth to where you're going. So I think that has also helped out, is they can go and come and not have to pay the extra time to do it.
Carolyn, sorry to interrupt, but what would you said you went to the Nebraska seminar? What was the timing for that? Was that all day? Was that a half day? I'm curious as to how they worked.
Oh, let's see. They're Central and we're Mountain, so they started at 8:30, and I think they got done at 2:30. And they had so they did it almost a full day, but not quite. And then they had probably a half hour, 45-minute lunch, and then 2 15-minute breaks in between. So similar to what you would do at the seminar. So it was kind of 3/4.
So similar to an in-person seminar. I was just curious about that. Okay.
There.
I was going to let Bobby answer that.
Oh.
She's our chapter president. She's got the stats.
Outgoing chapter
Outgoing.
president. I would say we have, so the Vancouver chapter has about 140 members. And of course it serves, much like Carolyn just mentioned about the Wyoming region, we serve all of British Columbia and the Yukon. So that's a huge geographical area. And so I think the most communicative of our members are actually in the local greater Vancouver area, probably, which is a substantial percentage of our membership. I actually don't have I don't have numbers, I'm sorry. But, but because we've started doing these virtual meetings now, we have had a bit more traction from the interior of British Columbia and the Yukon as well. There's actually a fairly strong contingent in the Yukon. They just haven't really been as, I mean, they can't always travel to Vancouver, obviously. So the virtual events have helped with that considerably. In terms of like people who attended the AGM, I think we had 25 maybe total at the AGM. So, I mean, that's a fairly small percentage of our total membership. But on the other hand, it was quite a few more attended the virtual event than the in-person AGM last year. I think we had maybe 15 at the in-person, and a lot of that was board. So yeah, so definitely.
As the programming director in Calgary chapter, I can definitely relate to that. This year, our AGM was the first virtual we have ever done as the chapter. And thankfully it went off without a hitch. We had 45 people, and at our in-person one last year we had 20. So we weren't actually sure how the virtual would work for us because this was our first time doing it. Being a Calgary chapter, we have a couple of people that come up from Lethbridge, but Edmonton has their own above us, so we don't have too many people that travel to come to ours. So that's why we haven't really had an issue. With in-person classes, we get anywhere from 30 to 50 people every month that I do one. We are only at 122 members right now, but looking forward with the way things are going and how awesome our AGM went off, I can see us doing more virtual, but I'd definitely like to be in touch with anyone that's done a lot of virtual to get some tidbits and some notes from. That would be great.
Can I ask, what's AGM?
Annual general meeting.
General, do you say general meeting?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Do you think Zoom will be, or virtual meetings will be the future of our chapters?
I can see it. Maybe not in like the distant future. Like I think the goal would be to go back to in person, but I think in the meantime, so that members can get the value of their membership, would be to continue doing virtual.
Yeah.
And the other thing we've noticed, and maybe it's because we've had fewer meetings to go to during the last 3 months, but there's all these online webinars that are just out there, usually sponsored by the vendors. Sorry, I joined late. They had trouble sending people away from the first meeting. But I feel like when we go virtual, our numbers may go up, but we are competing with what the vendors are doing. And they're typically very good webinars, and I use them for my CRM hours, but there's so many webinars, so many. And if that's all we do, the value we add above that is the networking and the learning from each other.
We do have.
How do you have a virtual happy hour?
We've done it.
It's all we do.
We've done it.
Go to their webinar and then come back with your glass of wine, and we'll go on Zoom.
Hank, do you know what kind of numbers that that the Johns are getting on there out of the box? Which, if anybody hasn't seen it, it's worth watching.
About 100 to 150.
Oh, really? Okay. Cool.
Hey, I did want to mention.
What was that again?
About 100 to 150.
What was it?
Or viewers. Oh, he's got a weekly webinar with it's bi-weekly now. John Montagna and of Montagna Associates and John Azaza of Access put together a show and interview people in the industry and talk about current events and best practices and whatnot. Yeah, I wanted to say in terms of what we can offer as ARMA, are we in a position to offer specific continued education credits that the vendors might not necessarily be able to offer, since we are closely aligned? Or because I think if there's forms that we filled out when we were registering for the kind of continued education credits that we get for our conferences and whatnot, are there specialized things that we could offer that maybe they necessarily can't?
I think you have to fill out a form to go to, and it goes through, I know we've done it through Heather Lehman. So like anything like we have in New Jersey, we started an annual day, a day conference, and had a full day's worth of conference with 3 tracks, right? 3 or 4 tracks, depending on how aggressive we felt we were going to be. And we offered credit, and we had to go through, we got credit from, and we didn't just get credit from ARMA, we also got credit from like CRM, and we got credit from IAPP. We went to the other sister organizations so that it was strong. I mean, when I'm an immediate past president, and that was my whole goal is, we can't do this alone. Anyone that thinks that ARMA is going to be the only one to do this is out of their minds, right? So my answer is you better start building allegiances and alliances with the other organizations, because I don't know who was saying it. It was Becky saying that we're competing with all these other people. And if we can, so every time we've run a conference or every time we've run something where there's the ability to do credits, we pass it by and we try to get multiple credits, right? We try to get multiple things. So, whether AIM gives it or for a CIP, whatever it is, we try to do it that way.
I'd just like Carolyn. Go ahead.
I'd like to point out that one of the challenges we face in Canada is that a lot of what is offered in the US is not relevant. Your laws are different. Your whole situation with privacy is completely different from ours.
But I want to say,
we can pick and choose, but we have to be really careful about the content. So this gives us in Canada a bit of an opportunity that maybe you don't have in the States.
I mean, we try to, when we do the daily conference, we have different tracks. So, you wouldn't have to choose privacy. Like when you were going, you could choose something else, right? During that hour. we do a lot of soft skills. We do sessions on soft skills. We do things on networking. We do things on storage. We do things on, all different kinds of topics. So when it comes to privacy, if you didn't want to go see, John Asaza speak on privacy, then you don't go to that one because it isn't relevant to you, right? But if you wanted to go listen to the FBI talk on, things you shouldn't do during a breach, right? That would be relevant to everyone. So that's the kind of stuff that would be important.
This is Carolyn. So we kind of do something similar during our seminar. So not only we do the CRM, but we also started reaching out to the local law associations to get credit for them, the local accounting associations. Anything that we can tie in, we've tried to figure that out to get more people incorporated and to get kind of the credit. We also have done for a couple years is we have our own, on top of our scholarship for it to do members, we also have a professional development fund. So any of our members that are wanting to do extra credit or go to college or whatever, we have a fund that they can apply to, and then we provide up to, I can't remember if it's like $500 or whatever, for them to get credit that way to try to incorporate different associations and different groups to get involved.
With our AGM being our first one, no, we did not.
We didn't either. Nebraska did, but I think theirs was probably about half of what it was. But so it was, I think it was $50, I think, for members, and I don't know what it was for non-members, but they're the only one that I've been to that's charged for it.
And I don't know when you can start charging, because like Becky said, everybody's not charging, and you're getting top line speakers. So I don't know. Michelle Kirk and I were just on a session for ARMA that got you credit, and there's no charge. So I don't know.
If your speaker's doing it for free, and you're not providing, it's not a lunch meeting. We always do ours at lunch or dinner or whatever. Then we're a nonprofit. It's just the organization, that's the service you're providing your members. But if you're having to pay a speaker, then you really have to say, well, we're pretty sure we're going to have 40 people and he's charging us $400, so we're going to charge $10 a person, whatever it is.
I guess the question begs that to be begged is, are you getting credit, right? And I think
credit.
Are you going to be provided with your little CLE credit or your?
Well, if it's only an hour, you don't have to have the documentation to do that. You just put in.
But what I'm saying to you is, in order to get your credit, you pay the money. That might be the difference. You can attend for free. If you want your credit, it's $10.
I see what Becky's saying. You could just say I went to, Michelle and Ann's session, and it's 1 hour. Anybody could write that in without having to pay the money.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
But you're supposed to do your proof. You're supposed to do your proof of attendance if you're doing it the right way.
Well, it says it's optional to attach it for 1 hour. It's an automatic.
It depends on who the credit organization is.
Yes.
That's true for CRM, but it's not always true.
It's not true for IGP. IGP is supposed to be showing.
Okay, I was just talking about ICRM. Sorry.
Yeah, IGP is supposed to be showing that you got the accreditation. You're supposed to be showing the number that says you got this. If it's IAPP, you're supposed to be seeing. If it's CLE, you're supposed to put the number.
So that you need to know your audience.
And that's why exactly.
You have any of those folks that are going to want that, and so you really have to know your audience.
Yeah, you can become, like in different states, you can become a CLE certified accredited person. And you can get it for a year. You can get it for a course. Like in New Jersey, it's difficult, but you pay a fee as an association, either by the course or by the number of courses or for the year. And then you can give the accreditation. There's certain hurdles, fences you have to jump over, and you have to give the course description and who's giving the course and whatnot. Like it's pretty just like a CLE would be, but in that you'd be getting more attendees, and they would pay because they're used to paying. right? If they were paralegal or whatever, they're used to paying to attend anything. So it's a different way of looking at things. If you want to sustain the longevity of ARMA, it's just a different way of looking at it. That's all.
I have a question.
Anne.
Yes.
Sorry.
So is the beneficial part of charging someone that needs a CRM credit or any other designation credit to ensure that they attend?
Yeah, they have to attend, and it has to be submitted, and like I was just on one yesterday with Baker Hostetler, and it was a CLE accredited course. So as I wanted to get that number, right? If you want to get that number, you have to be paying attention. You can't just like put it on and put it on the side. You have to be paying attention because they flash up the accreditation, and they don't do it all at once. They give you it in like 3 little pieces. So it's like a puzzle to be solved, you know? So you get you get it maybe on the 3rd slide. It'll give you part 1 of the CLE number, and part 2 might be a third of the way, and then another third, and you have to be paying attention. You actually have to be paying attention because it's saying part 1 and the CLE number's here. And at the end, you submit it and say, you get a submission form, and you have to fill out what the CLE number was.
Clever.
Very clever.
I never would have thought that like the honor system wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Like you register for an event, you should want to attend it knowing that you're getting a credit. I never would have thought to charge someone.
Babe in the woods.
Not charging someone.
Babe in the
You're
woods.
trying to learn. You're trying
Babe in
to
the woods.
learn.
So if you're an
Well, the people
attorney,
here are honest. Come on.
yeah, but if you're an attorney and you have to have X number of credits in technology by December 31st, and it is December 12th, and you have no credits, you're just going to want to hope that somebody's going to turn on that, the little slides, and you're just going to sit there, and you're going to write your brief while the slides are going on over here. That's what they're doing. So
I have a question, and it has to do with future economics. Are any of you able to predict what the financial capability of your members is going to be in the next year?
No.
I mean, my guess is that people are going to have this much money for any kind of CE.
Yep.
And so I'm thinking that if our chapters have got any cash at all, that we maybe should only be thinking about what we can do for free until we're sort of back on our feet again economically.
And I think you should make that statement that as a chapter, we're here to serve our members. And right now we know that people are struggling even to manage their membership. Fortunately, I had just paid mine. But to tell people, this is hopefully a temporary situation. Everybody's suffering right now. So what can we do this year to keep you around and to add value for free?
Oh,
Yeah, we've had a few.
My employer's never paid mine.
Yeah, my employer's never paid mine either.
I already paid for mine in January, thank God.
Yeah.
We had a number of our people that lost their jobs that were on the board. There's, and they were used to their employers paying them. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You mean regionalized as opposed to chapter level? I don't know.
I don't know.
I
Depends on what part of the country you're in.
Being able to bring everybody who has, professional backgrounds in CRMs and old hats at the trade, and having the opportunity to have an engagement process like we're having right now is the value of being an ARMA member. So these are kind of things we would probably should, promote is engagement opportunities like this.
Yep. Networking.
I agree, because that's what we've been trying to work. I mean, for the longest time is the local networking. Even though we're not in the same area, the networking and the collaboration and your priorities is similar. And again, the benefit of doing virtual is we can pull somebody in from Nebraska that works with water like I do, that also works with water that you don't normally get to talk to if you were to just have to travel somewhere. So we've been pushing a lot with the networking and the priorities and education and stuff that you couldn't really necessarily get if you were in a region, because we're all big and small and different sizes, and our companies are different sizes. So that's where we've been going, is a lot with the networking and the local priorities and what you're doing, I think, is the benefit.
So you're saying, Charlie, to break down things based on interest areas?
Interest for, industry groups.
Yeah, they were local industry groups. And, at times they were successful, at times they weren't. So, the legal one, it depends on the group, right? And depends on your area. So we had a lot of law firms, so the legal ones did well. The entertainment one, when we were able to find a location for it, did very well as well. So.
You know what I'm going to ask everyone to do, just so that we know where we are? Would everyone right-click on their picture?
Oh, good idea. Thank you.
Right-click on your picture and put your chapter in at the end of your name.
Great idea.
Right-click. Okay, thank you.
That's kind of long, so I'm going to.
Just do Greater LA.
Yeah. There we go.
Say hi to both my daughters, West Hollywood and Santa Monica.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, you'd be hard pressed. Like in New Jersey, our state is even though it's a smaller state and densely populated, it's hard because everybody has to get in a car or in a kind of like the LA.
Yeah.
Like there's certain
Same
areas
thing.
you can get a train, but for me to have a lunchtime event, who's coming? They might be coming from the top of New Jersey, the bottom of New Jersey. I can't do it. But you'd be hard pressed to ask New York to become part of New Jersey, because New York, we're both very bold states, right? We are both very bold in our, the way we treat people. But you'd be hard pressed to find that New York wants to become part of a region, right? They are very successful all on their own because of the numbers. Now, what might change that is if we never go back into offices, then they might be facing the same problems that those of us that can't get people into an office, setting. And I mean, for me, then that means that we have to at night drive someplace. Some of us may be that particular meeting. We changed our meeting locations to accommodate the different places in the state, so that maybe this time I have to drive half an hour, next time I have to drive an hour and a half, right? So we were doing that kind of stuff to accommodate the different places. But maybe if New York is going to face that, the city is empty. I mean, the city is empty, and they haven't even opened up. Maybe if they have to experience that, they'll be different. Like, who knows what this...
Yeah, what we don't know, that's the
be.
unknown, right? Exactly. The unknown is how long is this going to last, and is it going to stick? Is the work from home going to stick? My gut tells me in my area, it's going to stick, that they're not going to go back to putting us back in the office.
But you're in legal, right?
I'm actually at Farmers Insurance.
Oh, okay.
And, we just took in somebody from Anthem, and he said Anthem was mostly all work from home. So I think that movement was already there. Now legal's another, that's another fish, right?
Well, I mean, I'm on a lunchtime seminar that was started with legal leaders, right? So now I speak at a lot of national things. I'm only legal and I'm a consultant, but I'd say the majority of my law firms are not going back. Like,
oh, really? That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're not, that's a bellwether, I feel.
That is a bellwether. And it was interesting. I mean, who's not? They're going back on a very sparse basis. Like the AmLaw 100s, which would be the very largest firms, they already had work from home working, right? They already had that down, and they're looking to downsize their real estate. They were already allowing their attorneys to go. The big thing will be, the exempt versus the non-exempt. What were they allowed to do? But nobody wants to be in a lawsuit that allows, that you told somebody that was uncomfortable with going in to go in, right? So, so it's interesting. We were on this call, and it's the smaller old school firms that are the ones that are saying, you have to be in an office, you have to, we don't trust you, you have to be sitting in front of somebody. But most of my firms that are in that small to mid-sized group, they originally were like, oh, we can't let everybody work from home, nothing will ever get done. And guess what? They're finding out that work got done, and maybe more work than they expected. So they're now rethinking whether they're going to go back in, and they're, because they're already finding out. Like my one firm is in Manhattan, and they're only allowing 3 people on the elevator at one time. It's a 50-floor building. How are you getting, you have 6 elevators. How are you getting people with 6 elevators times 3? That's 8, 6 times 3, right? You can put 18 people up at a time. So I think there's a lot of things that will happen. So based on that, we have regional, we just had our regional meeting, end of year meeting and awards, and that was lovely, and it went well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do a more regional thing, because I don't know how the local chapters continue to survive unless they put a big presence in a virtual video. I don't think New Jersey could get any less people to participate. And even though we have great programming, we have great resources, it's hard to get people to come out and want to drive after a long work day, to drive a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour and a half, whatever that number is, and come out. I mean, I don't care how entertaining we are and how nice we are or how great our speakers are. We're all worked to death, and I just don't see it.
Well, and we had that going into this too, because LA is very close. It sounds like New Jersey, where I thought we were putting on better content than we ever had, and we were still struggling to have people attend. That was last year.
Yeah, and we've found the virtual has helped with that. But I think also in this current climate, the virtual has helped a bit with accessibility as well. Like, people are really, really busy, and a lot of people don't have the headspace to process, sitting through a 2-hour presentation or even a 3-hour, an all-day seminar or whatever. So to be able to jump on and do these bite-sized 1-hour webinars, they get great content, a few takeaways, is really, I think, helpful for people who are sort of having trouble focusing and grounding themselves during this climate as their job changes, and maybe they've lost their job or they're struggling with greater responsibilities at work. I think that is something the local chapters are doing a really good job with, because they can put together these quick it's not a big production. It doesn't take months of planning. I mean, that's what the regions are doing for sure. And it's been great. And I've had some experience on that end as well. But the local chapter events have been so relatively easy to plan and execute. And of course, the cost is another thing. They're free. And people can just jump on and they can experience those webinars. And we've had, ARMA Vancouver has been doing online webinars since just a little bit before the pandemic, actually, because we were already moving that direction anyway. And we've had wait lists. We've capped them at 30 people, say, for discussion purposes, and then had actual wait lists where people were sitting in the waiting room, and if they didn't show up, we started letting people in. So, and these were filling up in minutes because they were free, because it's so easy to just click on the Eventbrite link and hit, buy ticket. And yeah, maybe not everybody shows up every time, but it is, I think, getting the local chapter voices out there. And then if people from other chapters want to participate, or other membership groups want to participate, then they do. And that's fine too, I think. I think
that's interesting, the exclusivity. Like, if you don't get your ticket, you can't come in. I find that interesting.
It's mostly for security reasons, to be honest, with Zoom. If you register for a ticket through Eventbrite, then you get sent a unique Zoom link and password that no one else can jump on and hack. And also it helps keep track of metrics as well. So if we know how many people registered versus how many people showed up, we can kind of compare those numbers at the end and get better tracking for who's actually attending our events as well.
So as everybody knows, in my region, I'm the party guy for all of our region conferences. So how do we continue that? Now, I get the educational content. That's good. And I think the 1-hour webinars, seminars, whatever, over Zoom or whatever you want to use, WebEx, GoToMeeting, those are great. But how are we going to, engage people in the networking aspect of ARMA?
Hmm.
Well, here's two things. I'm in a number of things. I need to learn to say no, but the, so in New Jersey, everybody just came with a glass of wine, right, and or whatever you're drinking, and everybody sat and talked. I'm in another group that's called Wine Wednesdays, and they feature the wine of the week. And you run around and race out. Like the first time they did it, I don't even drink this wine. I was like, oh my God, I need to go. Like, I'm so OCD about doing things the right way, follow the rules. And they're like, oh, you had to get this wine. I'm like, I don't even drink that wine, but I went out to get it. Like, I found it and went out to get it. Risked getting COVID to go get this wine so that I wasn't out of line for that party, right? So I got the right wine, and they had somebody that got on and explained all the wonderful benefits of drinking that particular wine. So they had that kind of person on. Then I was on another one where it was a vendor driven one, and they showed you how to make the drinks, and they had a bartender come on and they listed the drinks, and then they showed you how to make the drinks, and they gave you the recipe for the drinks. I was on another one. I don't drink all day, but I just want you to know that. Then I was on another one. I'm multitasking while this is going on. Most of the time I'm drinking. Most of the time I'm doing this. I'm drinking just a big bottle of Pellegrino. But another one where the vendor sent food, like what Charlie was talking about. They saw who all was registered, and they called Uber, and the doorbell rang, and somebody showed up with food for us. So that was how they did it. The vendor showed up with food. Like, it was a little, like I got a bento box from like the. So it was like they sent $10 worth of appetizers kind of stuff to my house with an Uber Eats, right? So it's kind of a cute idea.
I have a question on engaging networking via Zoom that with or without food and wine, just doing networking events on Zoom. Do people find that the participants are participating, like talking, and is it more than just three people talking the same three people over and over? Or are people actually engaging sort of organically like they would in an in-person setting?
You mean in this setting? Are people talking?
Yeah, like with a networking event, though, not an educational event, like an event designed to be social or designed to encourage discussion.
I think one of the challenges is what I just did to you there.
Yeah.
The delays.
Yeah.
So when you're in person, there's no barrier to people having that very interactive conversation, or as some people like to call it, interrupting. You can't do that. You can't do that on a virtual meeting because it can't.
Yeah.
I will say, I feel like people have gotten better. Like I feel like in the beginning it was very stilted, but after everyone's kind of been thrown in this situation, I think they've gotten a little bit more organically. It's still weird, right? But
yeah. Yes. A lot more. Yeah.
And I think the breakout sessions help too. I think that's the key to it, is to have small breakout sessions and to have one person like Charlie in that session to get things going, right?
Yeah, it's been interesting that you said that, Jeff, because my company didn't ban Zoom, but they kind of discouraged use for business. You could use it for your daycare group or ARMA or whatever, but you weren't supposed to use it for business. But the exceptions that we've granted that they've made really good cases for have all been training related, because they wanted those breakout groups and they didn't think they were going to get the right kind of level of discussion without it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is Carolyn. I know that we had that not necessarily for the networking, because we have to practice networking because we're in Wyoming, but I know with a couple of our speakers, they did a really good job of encouraging people to talk. But I did find out that was the good thing with Zoom, is you do have the breakout sessions, and we found more people communicated and talked on the smaller breakout sessions than they did in the bigger area, because they felt more, I guess, that they wouldn't be picked on or something, so their feedback was provided more because it was a smaller group than a super big group. So the breakouts have been really good for ours.
Mm-hmm.
This is Carolyn. I think the best luck we've had lately is any of our speakers that have been from universities or colleges, because they've had to incorporate talking to a group like this and not in person. So I think that's the ones that we've had the best luck with, is they've worked the virtual room better than anybody else, because they've been used to having to try to get people to talk.
And I think, when we're talking about how we're competing a little bit with vendors, and what I like and what I enjoy from ARMA members is they're not constrained by not only selling a product, but kind of getting to the point where they'll be honest with you and give you good case studies. And I think that's where we shine.
I agree. I think that's the main advantage to the educational content that chapters and regions can deliver, is that it's not vendor focused, and there is always some hesitation. I mean, vendors they do great content and great webinars, and sometimes it's just what you need, but a lot of times it does, you always go into it with that little bit of they're probably going to try to sell me something at some point perspective. You're just not in the market for anything. I mean, you're not looking for somebody to sell you something. Then it is good to just hear about case studies, hear what other people in your industry are doing, current events focused topics, those kinds of things. And there are a few vendors who do that really well. But for the most part, I have experienced personally that chapters and regions do that better than vendors do.
You can also get vendors. I've been surprised because there's a couple times where I asked multiple vendors to be on a panel, and I assumed that they'd say no, and they said yes. So, to take the chance. All they could do is say no, right? And you move on to the next idea.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the other thing that we've had good luck with is vendors that are also ARMA members, because they know that they don't want they don't want to hear people preaching to them as an ARMA member, but they also have the knowledge as a vendor that you can bring in.
Well, everyone's, they're like ILTA, which is a really huge conference in the legal technology space, is now virtual. And so is, now ARMA is. And AIM is really worried. They're hoping they don't have to be. But I mean, knowing how major corporations are saying no travel through the end of the year, right? Until this is all figured out.
Right.
I mean, I have an ICU nurse as a daughter, and I don't even want to tell you what she says. So I don't think we're going to be seeing, until somebody can come up with a vaccine, I don't think you're going to be seeing.
Well, the other thing too is if anybody else is running up against this, I'm running up against don't ask for money. So, on anything. So, I'm going on my own dime right now, and that factors into it. That's why I was going to do more, but there's a price point, and I know I'm going to pay for it. So,
yeah.
The other benefit I found out with doing virtual is a lot of our speakers that we have, they haven't charged us to speak, because you don't have to pay for travel, you don't have to pay for hotel, and we've gotten a lot of our speakers that we would normally have to pay for free, because they just use their own time and do it that way. So that's been a pretty good cheap option. The speakers that don't normally wouldn't come to Wyoming, because you have to go to Denver, then you have to pay for travel and a car, and it's kind of a big to-do to get people up. So that was why a lot of the speakers we've got from like international or Texas or wherever, they can just do it remote, and we haven't had to pay for them and got it for really cheap.
I think this is the future.
Does anyone know if the vaccine was developed for SARS or not? Was there ever a vaccine for that one? Because I think they're in the same family.
They are in the same family, but there has not been one developed for that. But that just died. That just went away.
Got lucky.
Even when they finish the development, they've got 5 in development, and one of them at least is going into production now, just in case. But they're going to have to prioritize who gets it first. It's going to go to frontline people first, and then the vulnerable population. So before, it's going to be this time next year.
Yeah.
before the masses can get
And
it.
if it's effective and it needs to be tested and all that.
If
good
we're
stuff.
lucky.
If we're lucky, I know. That's the problem. None of us know, do we? We don't
And it's
know.
changing. It's morphing and changing
And
as it.
that's it in the fall. Mm-hmm.
But then again, too, the flu vaccine is not 100% effective, but you minimize your risk. So we're all about risk, right?
Yeah.
So when are we supposed to go back to the rest of the conference? Just curious, or are we
Couple
done?
minutes. We had a 5 minute. We had a
It was
5 minute warning.
about 2 minutes ago. There was a notice that came up.
Okay.
That was just like your little CLE. This is your CLE code.
Oh, and see, I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to get it, Anna.
You weren't paying
look
attention.
away.
It flashed across the top of the screen.
Look away.
Anna's been trained to look for
I
that.
have one last quick question. How many of you have put your chapter budgets together for next year?
Not yet.
Okay, and how are you proceeding, just from a practical perspective with planning? What's your underlying assumption about your revenue?
That it's going to be flat to nothing and probably negative.
Okay.
Because I don't think we'll be able to charge. Our seminar got moved from this April to September to now next April. That's the only thing we actually make any money on, and that's minimal. So we don't.
Everybody should see that one now, right? You can see that one.
Yep.
Now you'll pass your CLE. Pretty obvious.
Well, it's good to talk to everybody.
Meet everybody.
Thanks for everybody. That was great.
Got you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you in person someday, hopefully.
Yeah.
John, moved it to your slides. When I come back in, you're ready to.
Okay, I'll be ready to take it.
We're here.